Hey guys, today let's talk about what they don't tell you about labor and delivery, because they don't tell you a lot. I even went to a labor and delivery prep class and I was shocked by some things. Okay, first, let's talk about contractions. So there are Braxton Hicks contractions, which I think they normally start in the third trimester. They'll feel like either like a tight cramp or just like a tightening of the uterus without pain. And that's super normal. Generally, they're infrequent, or if they do happen, if you get up and walk around, they'll go away. And that's how you know they're false labor pains. But when the real contractions happen, sometimes they feel way different than that. For me, it felt like a stomach ache and a backache. So I would be getting like stomach ache pains, like almost like indigestion that would come and go. And that was actually a true labor contraction because I was actually going into labor. And then later on in labor, after I was like 3 centimeters dilated, I was also getting back pains. And so these felt totally different than Braxton Hicks. I think everyone is just different. And so be prepared that they might feel similar or just totally different than Braxton Hicks. Next, when you go into the hospital and you're in the triage room, which the triage room is the room where they check you to see if you're actually in labor, and then you go into your actual labor and delivery room. But if you're being induced, you go straight into the labor and delivery room. Anyway, so when you get checked, which means they're checking to see how dilated you are, which is how open your cervix is, it might be terrible. And by terrible, I mean terribly painful. I didn't know it was going to be that bad because when I was checked for dilation at the doctor's office by my doctor, it never really hurt that bad. And then when I was checked by these nurses, it was pretty rough. And I know that they're maybe checking more thoroughly or something. It also really depended on the nurse about how rough the dilation checks were. So I think maybe it does depend on the person a little bit. And once when my nurses switched, I did mention to my nurse that I was having a lot of pain every check. And she said, that's normal, but I'll try to go extra light for you. And then she did, and it didn't hurt as bad. So you can speak up and self-advocate a little bit. Now let's talk about the epidural. For me, the epidural was like a total breeze. My contractions and pelvic pain was way worse than the epidural. I mean, the epidural is like a little back prick. I mean, when you're in labor, that is the least of your worries. So I would say do not be worried about the shot. I was surprised at how early I was able to get the epidural. I was able to ask for the epidural when I was at a 3, which I know that that's pretty early. Your cervix starts dilating at 0 and then it goes till 10, and when you're at a 10, that's when you push. But I was having pretty intense contractions, and my doctor went ahead and allowed me to get the epidural early at a 3. So just so you know, you can do that. Now, my epidural worked great at first. It took away my pain. I felt relaxed. I felt like I could sleep. It was great. And then all of a sudden, it super wasn't. And I was starting to feel all these pains again, but I could hardly move my legs, but I was still feeling a lot of pain. And I would say again, if that happens to you and your epidural is not working, self-advocate. Ask for the doctor to come back. Tell your nurse it's not working. They tried about 3 or 4 times to get a catheter in me after I got the epidural, and I was like screaming in pain. And that's when I said no more. Obviously, my epidural is not working. And my nurse actually went and got the anesthesiologist, and he came back and gave me some sort of booster. And then they were able to get the catheter in, because apparently when you have an epidural, you have to have a catheter. And there was just no way, unless they gave me some sort of booster, that was going to go in. It was just way too painful. And then also, while that was going on, I was still feeling like back contractions. And so sometimes if you get an epidural, it'll work in some parts of your body. Like I wasn't feeling it as much on my stomach, but I was feeling a lot of contractions in my back still, so that can happen. And I would say if your epidural is not working, or if you feel like it might not be working, just ask your nurse to have the anesthesiologist come back. You can ask for that. Now, my blood pressure got low several times during the labor process, and my nurse kept encouraging me to eat Jell-O, which I didn't know that you could eat Jell-O. And apparently you can eat Jell-O, broth, and popsicles, and they'll bring them to you. I thought you couldn't eat at all while you're in labor, but apparently you can, and you can ask for those things. It may depend on the person a little bit, but because my blood pressure was getting low, they were actually encouraging me to eat these things. So that is a really helpful tip if you're in labor during a mealtime, because when you're not contracting, you actually get pretty hungry, because Labor and delivery is a huge workout, and you're not in pain a lot of times when you're not contracting, so then you want to eat. Now, when it comes time to push, if you've never pushed out a baby before, you don't quite know what you're doing, which is totally normal. But I would say, from someone who has pushed a baby, picture in your head you pushing the baby out, and then somehow you know which muscles to squeeze. It's weird. But if in your head you are picturing yourself squeezing all those muscles and getting that baby out, then somehow your body just actually is squeezing the right muscles and pushing the baby out. And then also, I had a nurse here and my husband here, each pushing my leg up. And then I would like kind of curl over, and somehow that helped too. Just kind of get the right muscles and get in the right position, and I don't know, help the baby go down. I also did something where they tied up a baby towel and I held it and the doctor held it, and we kind of did like a tug of war, and I would pull the blanket up and the doctor would pull the blanket and I would push at the same time, and actually that helps too. Now you're gonna get to the ring of fire, and the ring of fire is when the baby's head is about to come out. And that is where most of us will rip or tear or whatever. And even if you had the epidural, you're probably gonna feel something. I felt quite a bit, and my baby's head was stuck in the ring of fire for what felt like forever, and I definitely thought I was gonna die. This was incredibly painful, uncomfortable, all of it. My baby's head was stuck in my ring of fire for so long that I actually asked my doctor, said, is there any way you can help me? And she offered to do an episiotomy. So an episiotomy is where they actually cut, and so that the baby's head can come out quicker. And the cut actually didn't hurt. I don't know how the nerves work with the epidural or what. I didn't feel the cut pain. And as soon as she did it, man, that baby's head came out. And it was so much relief. I can't even describe that feeling. And then it was just one more little push, which that push to get the shoulders out was like almost like nothing. And then she handed me my baby, which was the most magical, crazy feeling. I remember just holding my baby like, oh my goodness, I have a baby. It takes a while to sink in. And I mean, I was so tired. I feel like a lot of mamas feel like that. I like was looking at my baby and loving my baby and soaking it in, but also like kind of trying not to pass out because I was that tired. I had been in labor all night. I had just pushed out a baby. Just staying awake, honestly, was hard. And part of that could have been I was having really low blood pressure, but part of it was just, I mean, I had just given birth to a baby. Now, after they give you some time with your baby to do skin to skin and everything, they are going to want to take you to the bathroom so that you can go potty. And it's not great. A lot of blood and stuff all falls out. It burns. It's not great. It's pretty painful. And if you have a can of Dermablast ready, I think that helps. So Dermablast like numbs everything down there. So I would definitely ask your nurse for some Dermablast if they don't have it ready for you, and just go to town after you go potty. You can also use a peri bottle, which is just like a water squirt bottle, and squirt down there while you're going potty, which can help too. They'll give you those things, and then they'll also probably give you like a giant pad with like one of those mesh diapers with like an ice pack on there. And all of those things are great and do help, but you're gonna have some pain. I was actually surprised. They just rotate you between Tylenol and ibuprofen for pain medication generally, which did take the edge off, but I mean, there was definitely still pain for the days and weeks to come. I was surprised that that's actually all they give you. Breastfeeding wise, the baby may latch right away, which will be great, but you may not feel like you have any milk because you probably won't. You'll probably have like a little bit of colostrum, which honestly, like when we were first breastfeeding, I didn't feel anything coming out. I didn't know what was going on. And it wasn't until I hand expressed some colostrum that I was like, oh, I have colostrum. Who knew? So you may not feel like anything's happening, but there probably is colostrum coming out and the baby is probably getting it. So it's okay. Don't stress out too much. Now, like I said, I was so tired after I had the baby, but I was also really excited and I couldn't wait to show her to our visitors, our family. And so I stayed awake, and then I wasn't really able to sleep during the day because I was excited and I was trying to breastfeed and this and that. And then that night happened and I was so dead tired, and I mean, my newborn slept okay, but like not great. She was still up plenty, and I mean, I didn't come home from the hospital well rested. We will leave it at that. And then every time I would sit or walk or move around or go potty, the area where I had my episiotomy would really, really hurt. So I was exhausted and in pain and bleeding a lot. It's like an extremely, extremely heavy period, 4 weeks on end. So my advice to you mamas is do not push yourself. Take your time to rest. Do not have too many visitors. Ask for help from other people, because labor and delivery is a beautiful, wonderful thing. You're bringing a life into the world, and you're sacrificing your body to bring a life into the world. But it is also so incredibly hard on you, and you need to take your health and yourself seriously and get your rest and recover. All right, that will be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please be sure to follow me on social media and subscribe if you haven't already. Comment down below if there's something about labor and delivery that you didn't know that surprised you. I would love to hear your stories as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.